My name's Vicky, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania.
My name's Yuban, and I'm originally from China.
We've been together for approximately 10 years now, since we were juniors in high school.
And we actually got married in July of 2011, so we're getting close to getting married for 2 years now. Right, so of course, coming from a Chinese background, culturally speaking, is actually obviously quite different from America. Basically, in Chinese culture, we talk a lot about traditions and trying to keep traditions. So actually, when we first started dating, it was a little bit difficult for my parents to accept her because she was American and I'm Chinese. But eventually, though, she did a pretty good job overcoming that barrier and really getting on my parents' good side with that. But
I think one thing I would try to do to win his parents over, there's a language barrier. His parents didn't speak English, still only know phrases of English. So I tried to communicate through acts. They had a restaurant at the time, and since he worked in the restaurant, he wasn't really able to go out on dates often, so I would go into the restaurant, spend time with them on Friday nights, and I would help out in the restaurant, just to show his parents that that I had good intentions, that I had good character and good morality, just so they could see who I was through my acts, despite not having the language to see that. I think it helped. I think they might like me better than you now, but...
That's so true. They do.
But the cultural part was a huge shock for me. I knew nothing about Chinese culture. They didn't teach it in school for us. It wasn't a big focus, so I learned through the experiences with his family. Different everyday things like hot water for everything. I was just like, what? Drink hot water after every meal? Language barrier was probably the most difficult thing to overcome. Most of the family didn't speak English. It was always Yuban translating for me for everything. But I do remember, though, for Yuban as well, him trying to experience American culture was really eye-opening for him because he had never experienced that at all. He was always very enclosed at home, didn't go out much. But so for the first Christmas that he came, I just, wait, okay, so what's Christmas? Exactly.
Okay, alright, it was like that. But
just understanding the cultural differences. Americans, we celebrate Christmas. It's celebrating Christ's birth. They don't celebrate Christmas in China. The different food, big thing. First Christmas, he had never had any of the food that we ever had. So, and same with me, eating the food at his house. I had never even seen half of it, like the entire whole fish on a plate with like the head and everything. Yeah, bones and everything. Yeah, we got through. You have to have an open mind, I think. You have to be understanding, this is the person, this is where they come from, and this is what has based who they are today. You have to just respect that and understand that, and just learn to love it about them as well.
So I would say that, you definitely need to embrace where they're coming from, the culture, because I know for me, even though I grew up in America most of my life, still I never really fully, experienced, how an American family works, or even really American food when I started dating her. And as she mentioned, my first, Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner was over at her family, spending time with them, so fun experience.
I guess you could say that his family had a huge impact on me. I really tried to focus on learning the customs, the culture, the traditions and everything, and I tried to apply them whenever I was with his family. I tried actively to learn Chinese, which was really difficult just to pick up, but I would just learn phrases, I'd learn words, and I'd say it with them, and there's a lot of key phrases that his mom and I always say, whenever I'm home, and I say, okay, Wang Wiki, good night, I would always try to put my American customs and convert them into Chinese, which didn't always translate because I was always used to every time, when you leave someone's house, say, okay, good night, thank you, or when they give you food or something, saying thank you, and that's not cultural in Chinese. You don't always say thank you for everything, and I guess in Chinese it's almost viewed as you distance yourself by saying that because you're saying, oh, you're a stranger that I don't really know that well, and now I'm thanking you for everything. But so I tried to really just learn as much as I could, just pick up everything, observe everything, and try to immerse myself in the culture and be able to mirror it back when I was with his family. So.
Just for me, like I say, even though I kind of grew up in the U.S. for the majority of my life, I didn't really start learning about the American culture, and I guess kind of learning about U.S. customs and everything until I started dating her. Because one thing I realized was that once we started dating, actually, it kind of opened up my mind quite a bit about just not really accepting other culture, but more so just having an open eye to see other culture. Because when I was growing up, I was always thinking, well, China, Chinese culture, that's the way to do things, and anybody else, any other culture, just weird. So that's something that I actually, had to learn just when we were dating, just trying to, see that. And also just when it comes to American food, I I love it, but also sometimes, just also need to open up my eyes to try some new stuff as well. For instance, I never had, eggnog. I'm not sure stuff you drink during Christmas and Thanksgiving. I've never had it before until I actually started dating her. Till this day, I don't like it, but it was my first time trying it when I was actually dating her. So definitely has opened up my eyes to a lot of things. It's one of the biggest benefits that we have as far as intercultural marriage goes. Is it has definitely made us more open-minded when it comes to other cultures. It kind of taught us, how to be more accepting of, people from other countries or just in other cultures in general. So that's definitely one huge benefit I feel that we've reaped from our relationship, and actually it has made our, open up our mind to actually really just travel around the world. So one day, both of us really hope to just travel the world and just see, hopefully, as many countries as we possibly could, actually.
I think it also has taught us how to really love like the Bible says to love, because you not only learn how to love romantically beyond each other's flaws that we might see that might relate back to cultural issues, but it's taught me at least how to love other people, not just different cultures, but even just different backgrounds, different lifestyles, to love past those things that most Christians would be so quick to judge, to just not see those as a barrier of love, but actually something to penetrate through, to love them despite those flaws. I'd say that's one of the greatest things that I've definitely learned through our cultural differences, is to just love through those things. I think our struggles in marriage, whether it be when we were dating actually, or even when we were married, actually turned into be our strength in our marriage, was through trying to work things out, trying to work our cultural differences, trying to understand like how each of us wants to live our life, how each of us thinks that our relationship should be. We had to learn to communicate really well. I think we had to learn to just be open. You don't hold back, just say, I don't understand this, explain this to me, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. We just had to learn to be really clear and just say, put it out on the table, say, okay, I don't understand why this is, explain it to me, and just look at it without judgment, without selfishness, and just try to figure it out together. I think that actually has become one of our strengths in our marriage again, but even when we were married though too, it was the difference of trying to figure out, now we're married, marriage is a very serious thing in Chinese culture, so how are we going to separate traditional Chinese views on marriage and then what God wants, biblical views of what our marriage should be? And that was our struggle for probably the first year.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things that I had to struggle with during our marriage was my upbringing in the Chinese culture. Because even though I grew up in the U.S., I was brought up, my mom and my dad, they were still very traditional. So a lot of things that I was brought up with, really, really pretty much ties back to the Chinese culture. So when we got married, that's one thing that I actually had to try to overcome, is try to separate, what I can bring into the marriage as far as like culture-wise and what I should leave behind. So one of the biggest thing was basically my parents' involvement in our marriage, because in Chinese culture, even after you get married, your parents are still very involved, trying to pretty much not tell you what to do, but a lot of it they dictate what should be done. So that's one thing that I had to leave behind, and that was something that I really had to look towards the Bible to see what was biblical, and what was not. So that was one of the biggest struggles, I guess, for me personally, that I had to overcome in our marriage. But again, when it comes to something like that, you just really need to look into the Bible just for guidance from the Lord, and just follow His word rather than let culture dictate I guess what we should do.
When we first started dating, we were both juniors in high school. Ethan was not a Christian. I was really burdened by it. I knew that I should be dating a Christian, but I just was kind of crazy about him. So I decided to kind of overlook it. And I learned really quickly that that was not a decision that God really placed in my heart. I was really burdened by the fact that he wasn't a Christian. And so I started talking to him about being Christian. What did he believe in? At the time, he didn't really believe in anything. He was kind of an atheist, I guess you could say. Probably more so Buddhist, just for tradition's sake. But started talking to him little by little. I went to Liberty and he was at Penn State once we graduated. And then we did long distance for a while, and God just really started speaking to me. I don't even know if they still do this at Campus Church, but I know they would do the whole relationship talk during Campus Church. It was the first year that Clayton King had spoken, and I was really burdened by it. We had a talk that night on the phone, and just talking about how hard it was for me that we couldn't relate on that. But we would slowly talk about it more and more, and
Or I guess for me, my original intent with dating her, of course, it wasn't from a Christian perspective either. And she mentioned earlier that I guess with her coming to me and asking me about all these questions about life and Christianity, I remember when she would tell me about him, I would actually just kind of listen to it the 1 year and then just kind of let it out the other year. And when she finally that night, she mentioned about when she called me, asked me about it, and pretty much gave me like it's kind of like an ultimatum that either I start pursuing God, or that she wouldn't be really able to continue the relationship much longer, since I was in States. So at that point, since I was so head over heels for her, I pretty much said, all right, I'll give Christianity a shot, and I'll see what I can do. And that's when I started reading the Bible a little bit, start reading it a little bit more just in general, just trying to learn more about it. And that's actually when God started to slowly, work in my heart, just showing me, what He is really all about, and just answering a lot of questions I had, doubts I had about life in general, and just about what Christ was really all about. So I actually transferred to Liberty during the spring semester of 2007, and the only reason I transferred down here was actually because of her. So I guess in a sense, you can pretty much say I chased her down here or followed her here. And at that time, actually, still wasn't saved yet. I was reading the Bible, trying to get more knowledge of it and everything. I definitely wasn't committed to Christ. But I guess for me, it actually finally clicked for me was during that following fall semester of 2007, when I finally realized that my sins, and also just the fact that I realized that just my life without Christ really means nothing, and that's when I stopped doubting that that there is a God. And when I really gave my life over, actually it was during I remember it was during was Spiritual Emphasis Week. That's when I gave my life over to Christ.
There's a big difference in our relationship once he became a Christian. I guess it just became deeper. more meaningful. There was actually meaning to our relationship instead of just, we're no longer in this high school state of a relationship. It was just, okay, this is a real relationship. This is something that we're investing ourselves in. And unfortunately, neither of us really had parents that were role models as a marriage, but I think God was the one who really just molded in us the way our relationship should be. And that's just kind of how it came through. It's just every day God just showing us how our relationship should be. I'd say overall with intercultural marriages, it really, you just have to be patient, you have to be understanding, and you both have to want the same thing, I think, in terms of you both have to want to make it work. You both have to want to pursue God. You both want to preserve your culture, but you have to be understanding, you have to be patient, you have to communicate. You're going to have to teach each other about your cultures. And you have to have an open mind in accepting those things. But ultimately, you have to refer back to the Bible to see, okay, are these cultural things counterintuitive to what God says that a marriage should be like? And then there's also going to be things that don't interfere with biblical values, so you can include them, you know. But you just have to be patient. You have to be open-minded. You have to just communicate things, and you both have to be in line in wanting those things. It doesn't work if only one person has those values in the relationship and the other does not. So,
I would say the other thing is make sure you have, you embrace, each other's differences and also each other's culture. Obviously, you're not always going to love what, I guess, what the other loves as far as when it comes to food or, just cultural customs and everything. But you do need to learn to embrace it and just love them for the difference and for who they are. And also, I would say when your culture conflicts with what the Bible says about what a marriage should be, then that's when you should really just kind of leave your culture behind and look in the Bible and just for I guess biblical advice about what a marriage really should be. So that's definitely, again, that was something that I had to learn myself once I got saved.